What is the Force? Whether you're new to Star Wars or a Star Wars Sith Lord, what the Force is and how it works creates some interesting questions. Let's explore that a bit more. My name is Jay Shear, and I'm the author of the time travel novel Time Slingers. On today's show, we're going to dig deeper into what the Force is and how it works. What is the Force? The best definition, if Obi-Wan Kenobi can be considered a reliable expert, comes from Old Ben Kenobi in A New Hope. After fending off the Tusken Raiders, Old Ben brings Luke back to his home and tells him about the Force.
And the Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
All living things are connected to the Force and simultaneously creating it. In fact, though we don't hear much about it in the films, Qui-Gon Jinn differentiates between the living Force and the cosmic Force. The living Force is the part of the Force that is created by all living things. It, in turn, feeds the cosmic Force, which is what binds the galaxy together. What about the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force? That's an important question, and I have some thoughts about it, but I'll get deeper into that in some of my upcoming videos about the Force. Do you remember what Han told Luke about the Force on the Millennium Falcon shortly after they left the Mos Eisley spaceport? As Old Ben Kenobi taught Luke about the Force, Han interjected that he'd never seen anything that would suggest that the Force actually exists, which leads us to another important point about the Force. A foundational belief in the existence of the Force is not universal. While Solo develops a belief in the Force over the course of time, as he tells Rey and Finn in The Force Awakens, the point is still valid. Not everyone in the Star Wars universe believes that the Force even exists. If we believe Old Ben Kenobi that the Force is an energy field created by all living things that simultaneously binds the galaxy together, we also have to admit that it's not obvious to everyone in the galaxy that the definition Old Ben gives us is true. Not everyone believes that the Force actually exists. While Obi-Wan's definition sounds like a scientific explanation, a basic description of how the universe works, it feels like it's a little bit more of a spiritual perspective, something that people choose to believe in or not to believe in. But it's even more complex than that because there are actually different interpretations of how people should interact with the Force. And that last point is critical because it indicates that even if a character believes the Force exists, that doesn't mean they also agree on a singular scientific explanation or spiritual perspective. We see multiple interpretations of how sentient beings should interact with the Force. On the surface of Starkiller Base, Han Solo turns to Finn and says,
"That's not how the Force works."
Now, that statement is meant to be funny, and it is, but it actually has an interesting truth behind it. Not everyone agrees on how the Force works or how sentient beings should interact with it. You can even picture a character on the Jedi Council turning to another character and saying, "I don't agree with Qui-Gon Jinn about how the Force works." Even amongst the Jedi Order, there isn't complete agreement. If the characters in the story can't even agree on the Force, what are we, the audience, supposed to believe about it? Is there enough compelling evidence to suggest that we should understand and interpret the Force in a particular way? I think there is. But let's break that down. First, the wisest characters in the story all believe in the existence of the Force. Yoda, Palpatine, Maz Kanata, Leia Organa, Qui-Gon, Darth Vader, Mon Mothma, and others. But I think you get the picture. All those characters are shown to be wise, either through their influence or their advice, and they also believe that the Force exists. In fact, if you can think of a character who's wise but doesn't believe in the Force, leave me a comment and let me know. I can't think of one. And here's a second piece of evidence. Characters who do not initially believe in the Force often turn into believers later in their character arcs after they've had compelling experiences with it. Han Solo, like we mentioned before, goes from unbelief to belief. The same could be argued for Finn and Rey. Also, in A New Hope, it doesn't take long for the chief of the Imperial Navy, Conan Antonio Motti, to realize the Force is real. Motti suggests that the Death Star is more powerful than Darth Vader's sad devotion to his ancient religion. And Vader proceeds to force choke him. Which brings us to our third piece of evidence. We see the Force in action. If the Force doesn't exist, how is Vader choking Mahdi? But if seeing the Force in action isn't enough to convince us, George Lucas even gave his characters a way to measure the Force by measuring a person's midichlorian count. The Jedi developed a proxy for an individual's Force sensitivity, a sentient being's ability to feel and interact with the Force, by measuring their midichlorians. So yeah, of course we're supposed to believe that the Force is real, and that the descriptions of what it is and how it works are reliable. What we're told about the Force is at least partially true, if not entirely so. In the Star Wars universe, the Force exists. And it feels like Old Ben Kenobi's description holds up. It's an energy field that's connected to all living things, and it binds the galaxy together. And despite the fact that people can be seen interacting with it and that it can be measured, some people still choose not to believe in it. But despite the fact that we're supposed to believe that it exists in the Star Wars universe, we still see online debates about what balance means and how the Force actually works. Why is that? Because there are multiple spiritual perspectives regarding the Force, and those perspectives cause believers to act and feel in very different ways. I'll be digging deeper into those perspectives in future videos, so make sure you subscribe so you do not miss them. What do you think the Force is? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're there, please click that like button. If you listen to podcasts, check out our upcoming Star Wars series on the Story Geeks podcast channel, and our series on The Mandalorian on the Story Geeks Talk Disney Plus podcast channel. Both those podcast channels are available on your preferred podcast provider, and links are in the description down below. If you like what we do here over at the Story Geeks, please consider becoming a member of the Story Geeks Club to support our ability to put out valuable content. Thanks for watching, and as always, question everything in your favorite geek stories. Always seek the truth.